Good day to everyone. So for this video lecture on ANSI 150 on sheep production, it is the second part of our discussion on sheep production, which focuses mainly on the feeds and feeding of sheep. So first, let's discuss the available feedstuff or the feedstuff that you can use for sheep. So basically, it is the same throughout the it is the same with that of the other ruminants such as yung goat, such as yung cattle or yung carabao. Kasi itong they have the same digestive system, which means they can utilize or process or digest yung mga um, yung s- yung mga forages, mga pastures um, that are available dun sa area nila. So, meaning pare-pareho lang sila ng kinakain. So, yung pagkakaiba lang is that doon sa amount. So, mas marami yung kinakain ng large ruminant compared dito sa mga small ruminants natin compared to sheep. So, first is yung mga pastures natin na mga feedstuff, yung mga pasture grasses natin. So, yung mga pasture, range, forbs, and browse, yun yung mga pwede nilang kainin are usually the primary and most economical source of nutrients for sheep and lambs. And in many cases, all that sheep and lambs need to meet their nutritional requirement. So, yun. Yung pasture talaga, yung parang cheapest na source of feed, source of nutrients ng mga ruminants. Kasi nga, meron sila nitong unique digestive system that could utilize this feed stuff. So, yun yung cheapest. Kasi kung maganda or high quality yung pasture, yung binibigay mo na grasses, then lahat na ng nutrients na kailangan ng sheep, makukuha na niya doon sa kinakain niyang pasture without supplementing it with concentrate, without supplementing it with vitamins and minerals. Given lang na high quality yung pasture. And then, nakakakain talaga ng sufficient amount. So, for example, from the time a ewe weans her lamb through her first 15 weeks of pregnancy, forage will likely meet all her nutritional needs. Then, lambs can be finished on high-quality forage diets. So, yun. Kahit wala na daw mga supplements, mga mineral, vitamins na binibigay, basta yung diet nung um, itong example natin na yung new at saka yung lamb, dapat nasa quality. Mataas yung quality ng forage na kinakain nila in order to sustain and in order to get the nutrients that they require for a ewe that weaned her lamb at saka yung lamb mismo. So dapat talaga high quality forage. So yung pasture kasi, if it is high in quality, um, then maganda rin yung or mataas rin yung value ng mga nutrients niya. So, mataas yung energy, yung protein, and then maganda rin yung palatability. So, especially if it is on vegetative state. So, yun yung parang target or yun yung time na talagang maganda, mataas yung nutrient content ng mga pasture grasses natin. However, it can have a high moisture content when it is rapidly growing, and sometimes it can be difficult for high-producing animals to eat enough wet forage to meet their nutrient requirement. So, vegetation with high moisture content can also cause sheep and lambs to have loose feces that can accumulate on their backsides. So, for this reason, it is important to duck lambs that will be finished on pastures. So, yun. Yung mga wet pastures natin, yung mga wet na grasses natin, kung masyadong mataas yung moisture content niyan, naglo-lose yung mga feces. So, hindi bababa or hindi ma-excrete ng maayos. So, yung tendency is um, ah, parang mapupunta, mai-stain yung fur, yung wool, lalong-lalo na dun sa likod ng sheep. So, mag-accumulate doon yung feces and then um, bababa yung quality ng mga wool natin. And at the same time, this can unsanitary na rin sa sheep kasi nga merong tae doon sa ano niya, doon sa likod niya. So, as much as possible, huwag pakainin ng masyadong maraming forages that are or pasture grasses that are high in moisture. So, as pasture plants mature, their palatability, digestibility, and nutritive value decline. Thus, it is important to rotate and or clip pastures to keep plants in a vegetative state. So, yun. Um, so, make sure na hindi talaga mature yung hindi na ganun katanda yung kinakain nilang grasses. Kasi kung matanda yung kinakain nilang grasses, um, one of its disadvantage is yun nga, nare-reduce yung palatability. So, baka ayaw nang kainin ng mga sheep. Nare-reduce rin yung digestibility kasi kung mas matanda yung grass, yung plant, um, mas difficult na para ma-digest um, yung plant. And yung most important is yung value, yung nutrients niya, nare-reduce rin. Kaya hindi advisable na pakainin mo palagi ah, ng mga ah, ng mga mature, yung mga masyadong matatanda ng grasses. So, another feed stuff that you can give to the sheep is hay. So, yung hay naman, it is a forage that has been mowed. Pwede yung nakat and then na-dry for use as livestock feed. So, it is usually the primary source of nutrients for sheep during the winter months or dry seasons when forage plants are not actively growing. So, sa hay kasi, ito yung parang advantage niya kasi pwedeng itong may store. After cutting yung mga plants natin, yung mga grasses, and then after drying, then you can store it para may makain yung sheep natin during months na uh, like for example during summer kung saan mahirap tumubo yung mga forage and pasture crops natin or forage or pasture plants natin. So doon mo ipapakain itong hay. So yung hay, it varies significantly in quality and while hay quality can be affected by plant species, quality is determined mostly by the maturity of the plants when they were harvested for hay. So yun, kaya with that, we follow yung rule kanina na dapat nasa vegetative state yung pag-harvest para mas mataas yung nutritive value compared dun sa mga masyado ng mature. So, hay is usually a moderate source of protein and energy for sheep and lambs. While good grass hays can have as much energy as legume hays, yung mga legume have 50 to 75% more protein and 3 times as much as calcium. So, meaning, when it comes to nutritive value, mababa yung place ng hay. So, kahit sabihin na mataas yung energy, yung protein content ng hay, mababa when compared to other mga feedstuff like yung mga legumes natin which have more protein. However, a good quality grass hay will be better source of protein than a low or medium quality legume hay if it is more digestible and palatable. So yun, meaning ang sinasabi lang dito, basta mataas or high yung quality ng hay na binibigay mo, mas better pa rin na yun yung ipapakain mo compared doon sa mga low or medium quality na mga legume hay. So yun. So, dapat na make sure na high quality yung ipapakain mong hay. If wala kang parang if meron namang available na legume na pwede mong ipakain pero alam mo na low quality yung hay ay yung legume na yon, tapos meron ka ring available na hay na alam mong high quality, then go for the high quality hay. Then another one, aside from the hay, is yung silage or ensilage na tinatawag. So, it is yung silage, it is a generic term for livestock feed that is produced by the controlled fermentation of high moisture herbage. So, bale ini-store to, fine-ferment, then ini-store. Ah, by storing na ferment itong mga grasses natin. So silage can be made from forage or green crops. So it has been successfully fed to sheep. However, special attention must be paid to quality as moldy silage can cause listeriosis or circling disease. So yun, pwedeng ipakain ito sa mga sheep natin itong silage. So yung ano lang is proper procedure. Just follow yung proper procedure in silage making, and then make sure na walang tumutubo or nagde-develop na mga molds or mga fungus that can parang dampen or that can bring toxin doon sa pagkinain ng mga animal. So kailangan na free from mold sila. Kasi tulad ng sinabi dito, it can cause listeriosis or yung circling disease. Now, yung listeriosis, it is an occasional cause of abortion in use. Kaya mahalaga na wala silang kinakaing mga molds. So, as compared to cattle, sheep are more susceptible to the negative effects of moldy silage. So, it is important that sheep consume silage before it has a chance to spoil. So, you should only put out the amount they can consume in a day. So, yun, in order to avoid yung moldy na silage, then kailangan na yung ipapakain mo within the day is mauubos nila. So kailangan na walang matitira kasi it can spoil, mabaling nga mabangness, and then doon tutubo yung mga molds. So pag kinain ito ng mga lambs natin, ng mga sheep natin, then this can cause listeriosis. So, as with fresh forage, the high-producing animals often cannot enough consume enough high moisture silage to meet its nutritional needs. So, yung silage is typically fed on large farm due to the need for storage and automated feeding equipment. It can be a more economical source of feed than traditional feeds. Then for mga small and medium-sized flocks, silage bags make silage feeding a possibility. So sinasabi na yung silage, yung potential ng silage can be maximized only in larger farms. Lalong-lalo na if you have the means to store it, you have the materials, the equipments to perform silage making, then pwede yung silage na ipakain, pwedeng option yung silage na ipakain, lalong-lalo na kasi it is much cheaper than yung mga commercial feeds natin. Then another one, you have also what we call as concentrates. So ito namang mga concentrates natin, there are also times and situations where concentrates are more economical source of nutrients than forages. So creep feeding and supplemental feeding of lambs has been shown to increase weight gains and market acceptability. So the economics of supplemental feeding will vary by operation. So yung concentrate, ito talaga yung parang for supplement only. Hindi ito yung parang um, main na feedstuff na ipapakain mo talaga doon sa mga ruminants natin kasi if meron ka namang available na forages at saka meron ka namang available na mga pasture grasses, then go for that option. Pero may mga situations kasi na kailangan talagang it is much better to feed yung um, sheep natin with concentrate. One example is when sa feeding of lambs. So, kailangan talaga ng concentrate, lalong-lalo na if you're performing creep feeding. So, yung creep feeding, ito yung pagsusupplement ng mga ganito, mga concentrate, mga minerals. Binibigyan mo yung lamb kahit na kumukuha pa rin siya ng milk doon sa nanay niya. So, creep feeding yon. Binibigyan mo siya, sinusupplement mo ng mga concentrate. So, sa concentrate, we have what we call as yung energy feeds na tinatawag. So, carbonaceous concentrates yung pwede mong itawag doon. So, itong mga energy feeds na to, they are high in total digestible nutrients but tend to be low in protein. So, nasa mga 8 to 11% protein lang. So, yung mga common na mga energy feeds natin, uh, usually ay yung mga cereal grains natin like yung mga corn, barley, yung mga wheat, mga oats, yung mga sorghum. So, yun yung mga energy feeds natin. Then, others byproducts of feeds are also high in energy. Then, while cereal grains are the most concentrated source of energy, they are high in phosphorus and low in calcium. So, if the feedstuff is high in phosphorus and then low in calcium, tapos palagi na lang na ito yung binibigay, feeding a diet na high in phosphorus at saka low in calcium can cause yung tinatawag natin as urinary calculi in rams and especially withers. So, inadequate calcium naman can lead to milk fever in pregnant or lactating ewes. So it is important to understand that cereal grains are an energy source, not a complete feed. So yun, hindi maaari talaga, hindi makakasurvive yung animal if yung pinapakain mo lang is yung concentrate. Then we also have what we call as protein feeds. So yung protein feeds naman, you can call them as proteinaceous concentrates. So, uh, wherein they um, kabaliktaran ito ng energy feeds natin. They are usually high in protein over 20%. So examples include soybean meal, cottonseed meal, and fish meal. So in the US, yung soybean meal is the most commonly fed protein supplement and often the most economical. So yung soybean meal kasi it is on par uh, with the with its protein content, pwede mo itong ikumpara, pwedeng magkasing level sila ng mga animal protein source na mga from animals like yung fish meal at saka yung blood meal for example. So mataas talaga yung quality or yung content ng protein doon sa soybean meal. Kaya ito yung isa sa mga popular na protein feeds natin. And it is the most economical kasi nga mataas yung nutrient content, yung protein content on par with the animal source na protein feed. Pero, yung soybean natin, it is plant source. So, it is much cheaper. So, another one is yung cotton seed, which is another common source of protein for livestock. With that, doon yun yung mga feed stuff or yung mga feedstuff na pwedeng ipakain doon sa mga sheep natin. So with that, dumako naman tayo doon sa mga in feeding yung mga ewe natin. So first, let's discuss yung feeding na pwedeng feeding management na dapat nating gawin for our ewes. So the period from weaning to breeding of ewes is critical if a high weaning rate is desired. So ewes should not be allowed to become excessively fat but should make daily gains from weaning to breeding. So, if yung aim mo and alam mo naman na may history yung mga ewe mo na nanganganak sila ng dalawa and yun yung parang goal mo, kailangan talaga na yung pinapakain mo from weaning up to breeding dapat maganda. So, lalong-lalo na if yun nga, desire mo yung twinning. So, yung mga use natin, if proper yung management, hindi sila magiging mataba. So, you should not allow yung mga use to become excessively fat kasi this may affect its conception rate. This can also affect yung lambing, yung process of lambing. So, baka ma-abort yung mga ano natin, yung dinadala niya. So, kailangan na pag pinapakain mo yung ewe, make sure na maganda yung body scoring and then make sure na hindi talaga sila masyadong mataba. So, yun. So, if pasture production is inadequate, ewes must be confined and fed high-quality hay and a small amount of grain if necessary. So, breeding while grazing legume pastures like mga sage, white clovers may tend to depress the size of the lamb crop, so lowering the intake of certain feedstuff. So, um, pag daw alam mo na wala kang masyadong magandang supply or mababa yung supply mo ng pasture, ng mga pasture grasses, then you can confine yung mga ewes natin, you can feed them high quality hay. So, dapat make sure na high quality hay. Kasi kung mababa yung quality ng hay, wala ring silbi, hindi mamimit nung low quality hay yung nutrient requirement ng ewe. So, yon dapat high quality yung hay and then dapat small amount of grain. Sinusupplement mo ng mga grain feeds. So, sinasabi na uh, during breeding, lalong-lalo na if nagre-graze sila dun sa mga pastures that have abundant supply of legumes, mga legume grasses, legume crops natin, dinedepress yung size of the lamb crop na tinatawag. So, pag na-decrease yung size ng lamb crop, this can lower yung intake ng mga certain feedstuff. So, kailangan na hinay-hinay lang doon sa pag-graze, lalong-lalo na sa mga legumes. So, after mating, yung mga ewes naman can be maintained on pasture. So, uh, pwede silang, um, tawag nito, kahit wala ng mga other supplements like concentrates, mga ganun, they can survive. They can, um, they can get the nutrient requirement or their nutrient required for their maintenance on pasture only. So, you can maintain it on pasture, thus allowing feed to be conserved for other times of the year. So, good quality pasture for this period allows the ewes to enter the winter feeding period in good condition. So, when pasture is unavailable, an appropriate ration should be formulated. So, yun. Pag walang pasture, then dito maglabas ka na ng mga calculator mo, then you should compute for the appropriate or the ration na kailangan, yung correct ratio na kailangan ng isang ewe na lalong-lalo na during winter wherein yung mga pasture natin is unavailable. So, during the last 6 to 8 weeks naman of pregnancy, growth of the fetus is rapid. So, this is a critical period nutritionally. So, particularly for ewes carrying more than one fetus. So, beginning 6 to 8 weeks before lambing, the plane of nutrition should be increased gradually and continued without interruption until after lambing. So, before daw, na kasi itong 6 to 8 weeks of pregnancy, before yung last na 6 to 8 weeks na before manganak, critical period ito kasi nga dito na magde-develop ng yung kailangan na talaga ng maraming nutrient yung lamb na nandun sa nanay kasi dito yung mataas yung kailangan ng nutrient for its development. So, because of that, kailangan na yung plane of nutrition, yung ano lang yan yung kailangan niya ng nutrient, dapat ini-increase mo pa rin yung pagbibigay. Kasi nag-i-increase yung nutrient requirement niya. So, kailangan ini-increase mo rin yung nutrient na kailangan na ibibigay mo para masustain niya yung development ng fetus. And kailangan ito nag-i-increase yung nutrient requirement niya, then dapat i-increase mo rin yung binibigay mong nutrient, and tsaka lang to mag-i-stop after yung lambing. So, after lumabas na yung fetus or yung lamb, after na nanganak yung then doon na mag-start na medyo bababa bababa konti kasi lactating pa rin pero bababa konti yung um, nutrient requirement na kailangan ng ewe natin. So the amount offered depends on the condition or fat covering of the ewes and quality of the forage. So if you are in fair to good condition, so kung maganda yung um, pangangatawan nila, so dito ka mag aano ng body scoring. So kung maganda yung pangangatawan nila, then 225 to 350 grams daily ng ano natin, ng is usually sufficient. So, yun yung pwede mong ibigay sa kanya na yung parang concentrate or supplement. Then, we have here yung feeding ng lactating ewe natin. So, sa pag-feed ng lactating ewe, succulent pastures, mga furnishes, adequate energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals for ewes and lambs. Then, no added grain is necessary. So, yun. Magandang pasture. Then, meron kang supplement ng energy. So, doon ka kukuha sa mga concentrate, sa energy feedstuff. Then, nagsusupplement ka rin ng protein, vitamins, and minerals. So, yun yung kailangan ng isang ewe na lactating. Kasi nagpro-produce ka ng milk dito, so kailangan talaga na mataas yung meron kang adequate amount ng calcium na pwedeng ibigay at saka yung protein. So, dapat no added grain is necessary if you are following ito. If nagsusupplement ka ng mga vitamins and minerals, tsaka protein. So, you should have access to a mixture of trace mineral salt and dicalcium phosphate. So, ito dito sa lactating ewe ito. So, kailangan meron silang mineralized salt or yung dicalcium phosphate. Yung ewes with twin or triplet lambs should be separated from those with single lamb and fed more concentrate and or better quality forages. Kasi nga, in common sense, dalawa yung pinapasuso nung lamb natin, nung karnero natin. So, kailangan rin na i-separate mo sila para matutukan mo para mas marami kang ibibigay na feed. So, dito magsusupplement ka ng concentrate at saka dito ibibigay mo talaga yung mga high quality na forages para masustain niya yung dalawang pinapasuso, dalawa or tatlo na pinapasuso um, na lamb. Then from 2 weeks of age naman ng mga lambs na, so speaking of lambs natin, sa feeding ng lambs natin, from 2 weeks of age, so before 2 weeks, kailangan talaga na um, they are mainly yung pinagkukunan nila ng nutrients nitong lambs natin are yung mga milk. So, after 2 weeks of age, lambs should have free access to yung creep feed na tinatawag. So, yung lalong-lalo na if pasture is limited, kailangan talaga na nagbibigay ka ng creep feed. So, they should be creep fed for 1 to 2 months until adequate forages are available. So, if pasture will not be available until the lambs are 3 to 4 months old, they can be finished in a dry lot. So, dito, pwede ka pa rin na magpakain pero hindi na yun pasture. So, yung mga stored na mga forages like doon sa mga hay, sa silage, and then doon ka na magbibigay ng mga concentrate, ng mga magsusupplement ng mga vitamins and mineral. If wala pa rin pasture na available after 3 to 4 months old, then you have the option para i-raise sila doon sa dry lot. Then, the grain used should be ground, coarse, or rolled. But as the feeding period progresses, whole grains may be used. So, kailangan daw in creep feeding, yung grain na ibibigay mo should be ground, pwedeng coarse, ground coarse, or pwedeng na roll. So, after that, or as the feeding period progresses, as time goes on, then pwede ka nang magpakain ng mga whole grains, yung hindi na durog or hindi na na-roll na grains. So, pwede ka nang magpakain yon. So, small amounts of fresh, clean grains should be slowly introduced to the lamb's diet. So, the amount of grain is increased gradually until the lambs are on full feed na. So, yan. Doon naman sa rearing of lambs on milk uh, replacer, yung mga orphan lambs natin, yung walang nanay, yung mga extra na lamb na hindi ayaw pasusuhin ng nanay, yung mga triplets or those from poor milk use can be raised on milk replacers to improve productivity. So yung milk replacer, essentially as the name implies, it replaces yung milk na kinukuha nila doon sa nanay nila. So such lambs, yung mga orphan, yung mga lambs na wala nang talagang nanay, hindi na makakapagsuso doon sa nanay, should receive 10% to 20% of their body weight in colostrum divided into multiple feedings within 18 to 24 hours of birth. So, yun yung parang rule. So, yung dapat na colostrum na ibibigay mo is 10% to 20%. So, kung may 5 kilogram na lamb yun, then dapat 10% to 20% of that weight of 5 kilogram, yun yung amount na dapat ibigay mo na milk replacer. So, it is divided. So hindi yan parang isahan lang. So, dinidivide all throughout the day or within 18 to 24 hours. So, dinidivide mo into multiple feeding. So, if your colostrum is unavailable, a frozen pooled supply from several cows can be used. So, pwede mong gamitin kung wala talagang colostrum yung nanay, wala kang na-store na colostrum, then pwede kang gumamit doon sa cow, yung colostrum ng cow. Then, yung mga milk replacers natin, they are designed specifically for lambs where are available and contain 10% fat, 25% protein, and high level of antibiotics. So, parang yung colostrum, yung natural colostrum ng mga ewe natin. So, under certain condition, it may be advisable to inject orphan lambs with vitamins A, D, and E, and selenium reed. So, in hand rearing systems, ewe milk replacers are preferable. However, good quality replacers designed for calves may be fed to yung mga lambs natin. So, when mixing milk replacers, care should be taken to ensure that the powder and water are properly mixed into a suspension. So, kailangan talaga nami-mix talaga ng maigi. So, feeding small quantities throughout numerous feeding helps reduce the incidence of bloat and or diarrhea. So, it is not advisable na pag nag-feed ka ng milk replacer, isang beses lang na one time, big time na. So, kailangan dinidivide yan all throughout the day. Dinidivide yan in multiple feedings para hindi mag-bloat yung kambing and then para maiwasan yung diarrhea. So, yung mga milk replacers natin should be fed at 10 to 20%. Yun nga, sinabi ko nga, of the lamb body weight divided into 4 to 6 feedings per day during the first week of life. The number of feedings can be reduced over time to twice a day by 3 to 4 weeks of age. Then, for the feeding of finishing feeder lambs, so sinasabi na there is no best method or diet for finishing lambs. So, they may be finished on good to excellent quality forages like yung mga alfalfa natin with no supplemental grain. So, they may be started on pasture or crop residues and move to grain feeding system as the forage is used up. So, yun yung pag-feed doon sa mga finishing feeder na lambs natin. So, when fed in a dry lot, they are usually allowed free access to feedstuff. So, these diets may be pelleted, ground, and mixed, a mixture of ground forage, pellets, and grain, and or high concentrate type. So, self-feeding usually results in maximal feed intake and gain with reduced labor cost. So, kung yung yung pagre-raisan mo ng finishing feeder lamb is doon sa dry lot, hindi doon sa pasture, then they should have access, free access doon sa kinakain nila. Kasi kung may free access sila doon sa kinakain nila, then na-maximize yung feed intake nila, and then kukuha nila yung sufficient amount na nutrient na kailangan nila, and at the same time reduce labor cost. Kasi nga nandun na, free access na. So dapat talaga uh, hindi yung pupunta ka doon ng multiple times a day para ipakain. So make sure na marami yung um, feed stuff na available for them to feed. So, yung mga producers who feed lambs year-round or feed heavy lambs usually prefer to place the lambs on full feed as soon as possible, 10 to 14 days. So, yun. So, 10 to 14 days on a normal lamb, nagsususo pa yan, creep feeding pa lang yung inaano. Pero if you are going for a heavy lamb, for finishing feeder lambs talaga, as soon as possible, 10 to 14 days, pwede mo na silang pakainin fully. Then lambs can be started safely on self-fed ground or pelleted diets containing 60% to 70% hay. Within 2 weeks, the hay can be reduced to 30 to 40% when the ration is not pelleted. Then other roughages such as cotton seed hulls or silage can be used in a similar manner. So, ganon yung feeding for finishing and feeder lambs. And lastly, for the mature breeding rams natin, mature breeding rams should be grazed on pasture when available or fed in ration kung hindi available yung pasture. So if rams are in thrifty condition at breeding time and the ewes are on a good flashing pasture, it should not be necessary to grain fed the rams while with the ewes. So rams should be maintained at a body condition na 3 to 3.5 on a 1 to 5 scale before the breeding season para hindi sila mahirapan sa pag-mount, hindi sila mahirapan sa uh, act of breeding na. So, kailangan na maintain yung middle 3 to 3.5 na body condition score. So, with that, that ends my video presentation on the feeds and feeding of sheep. So, with that, thank you for listening.